Which one is term baby? Which one is term fetus? Big one or small one? Term fetus. Huh? Yes, both are term fetus. One is IUGR or fetal growth restricted baby, and other is normal size, average size, term baby, healthy baby. Okay? These both are term, across 36 weeks. That's the difference between fetal growth restriction and normal development in a fetus. Okay? We will read in different headings like definition, pathophysiology, classification of FGR, etiology, diagnosis, and then management. What is the definition of fetal growth restriction? Fetal growth restriction refers to a fetus that has failed to achieve or attain its genetically determined growth potential. This word is very important. Genetically determined growth potential. FGR implies a pathological restriction of the genetic growth potential. Pathological restriction. I will now use the short term FGR only. Everyone will be able to understand, okay? FGR, fetal growth restriction. There is abnormal growth, okay, or arrest of growth. When we take two measurements around 3 weeks apart, there is arrest of growth, or there is no growth at all between the two measurement. That is why it is known as arrest of growth. When you are studying FGR, you need to know what is SGA, okay? Because in different part of world, sometimes SGA is used, and sometimes in some other parts FGR is used. What is SGA? Yes. What is the definition? It is defined as a fetus with an estimated fetal weight less than 10th percentile of gestation age. Severe SGA means effective fetal weight less than 3rd percentile. 50 to 70% of SGA fetuses are constitutionally small with fetal growth appropriate for the maternal size and ethnicity. Constitutionally small means they are normal, but they are small in size. But their fetal growth is appropriate or normal for the maternal size and ethnicity. This is the, you must have read this growth chart in Pete's weight. This side is the weight of the fetus, and this is the gestational age. Suppose at 32 weeks, fetus weight is around 1000 gram or 1 kg. Then we took the measurement around 34 weeks. At around 34 weeks, it was around 1.4 kg. So there is some growth, okay. It falls, this is 10th centile, this is 50th centile, and this is 90th centile, okay. This middle red one is 50th centile. This is the 10th. This is the 10th, this is the 90th centile, and it is the 50th centile. Suppose this is the fetal weight, effective fetal weight, and this is the gestation age. Suppose at 30 weeks it was around 1 kg, and 34 weeks it was around 1.4 kg. It is falling at 10 centile only, but there is growth. So that can come under SGA. Okay. If suppose at 34 weeks weight is around 1.1 kg, it falls below 10 centile. There is no proper growth between the two in time interval, that is 3 or 4 weeks. That will fall under fetal growth restriction. Okay, that's the difference between the two. And what is SGA? SGA is of two types, okay? Constitutionally small and fetal growth restricted, okay? These two comes under SGA only. SGA is less than effective fetal weight less than 10 centile for that gestational age, okay? It can be constitutionally small according to the maternal size and ethnicity. It can be normal, or it can be pathologically restricted. Pathologically growth restricted. This pathological growth restricted is the difference between constitutionally small and FGR. Okay, so all FGR fetuses are SGA. You can say that all FGR fetuses comes under SGA, but can you say all SGA fetuses are FGR? No. Okay, no. Around 70% of the SGA fetuses are constitutionally small, majority are constitutionally small, and around 30% are fetal growth restricted, in which 10% percent are symmetrical IUGR and 20% are asymmetrical IUGR. This is the below 10th percentile, it is known as small for gestational age. Above 98th percentile is known as large for gestational age. And between these two is appropriate for gestational age. This is the growth curve. As I have already told you that IUGR is, because of this, IUGR is worst. SGO or the constitutionally small fetuses coming under SGR normal fetuses. And Doppler ultrasound is hemodynamic distribution in the IUGR, and Doppler study is normal in constitutionally small fetuses. Abnormal environment adaptation is present in IUGR fetuses and absent in constitutionally small SGA fetuses. Preeclampsia risk is higher in IUGR fetuses. Why we need to study IUGR? Because IUGR is treated with 3 to 10% of all pregnancies, and perinatal mortality rate is 5 to 20 times higher for the growth retarded fetuses. It is the second leading contributor to the perinatal mortality rate. 20% of all stillbirths are IUGR. Incidence of interpartum asphyxia in cases of IUGR has been reported to be around 50%. Majority of IUGR fetuses, if they are subjected to normal delivery or prolonged labor, can develop intrapartum asphyxia. Early and proper identification and management lowers this perinatal mortality and morbidity. This is the pathophysiology. As you must have read in the development of placenta, the topic is covered already in last year. There is spiral arterial remodeling that occurs around second trimester, 12 to 16 or 12 to 18 weeks. There is placental implantation and blood supplies grows, and there is remodeling of this. These are the spiral arterioles. There is remodeling of spiral arterioles in normal pregnancy. And there is normal dilatation of the artery by loss of elastic vascular media, and the blood flow increases. Main motto is to increase the blood flow as the pregnancy advances. That's why there is remodeling of spiral arterioles in normal pregnancy. But in FGR fetuses or preeclampsia, there is abnormal invasion. As you can see here, this is much smaller. The pathway is much smaller, the arteriole is much smaller. Here it is larger, space is more. There is abnormal invasion and remodeling of the arteriole, leading to high resistance flow, and here it is low resistance flow. This is the normal pregnancy. There is low pressure, high blood flow. High blood flow, so more blood will go to the fetus, and development will be more of the fetus. But in FGA or a preeclampsia, there is high pressure, reduced blood flow. Less blood flow will go to the fetus, and there will be fetal growth restriction. Due to all the causes, maternal causes like infection, preeclampsia, undernutrition, there can be placental insufficiency, and there will be reduced nutrient oxygen transport to the fetus, and that will lead to IUGR. This is the basic of IUGR, why IUGR develops for your level. Now there are 3 stages, basic stages of maturation. You must have read this in anatomy, embryology, all that, but just to correlate with the FGR, I am telling you this. The stage 1 that occurs from 4 to 28th week, there is increase in cell number. Hyperplasia occurs in stage 1. Stage 2, hyperplasia and hypertrophy occurs. Stage 3, hypertrophy occurs. That means increase in cell size. What is hyperplasia? What is hyperplasia? What is hypertrophy? Cell size or volume, yes. So, if there is any insult in the stage 1, suppose there is insult in the your stage 1, that is hyperplasia. There is insult. So, there will be cell number will decrease, and it can lead to early onset IUGR. But if the insult occurs, what are the insult occurring most commonly in the stage 1? Like fetal infections, genetic causes, fetal anomalies. These all can lead to insult in the stage 1 or hyperplasia stage. If the insult occurs in stage 3, that is hypertrophy stage. Hypertrophy means here cell size is increasing. If the insult occurs in this stage, what it can lead to? Decrease in cell size, it will decrease, and it can lead to late onset IUGR. What are the main cause? Uteroplacental insufficiency. That occurs in stage 3. Stage 3 occurs in the third trimester, that is the 28th to 40th week, that is the third trimester. If insult occurs late in the third trimester, it can lead to late onset IUGR, and stage 1, it can lead to early onset IUGR. In the early onset IUGR, when you will do USG, what are the biometric parameters? Head circumference, abdominal circumference of femoral length. All will be decreased proportionately. Okay, all will be equal but decreased. Okay, but in late onset IUGR, head circumference will be normal and AC will decrease. There is disproportionate or asymmetrical IUGR in the late onset. Around 95% of the fetal weight gain occurs during the last 20 weeks of gestation. The classification of early onset FGR and late onset FGR, as I already told you, fetal size is proportionately small. In late onset, head is much larger. Cells number is reduced. Here it is size is reduced. Causes are chromosomal, genetic, fetal infection, uteroplacental insufficiency. Which one is more dangerous? Early onset or late onset? Huh? Late onset is most dangerous. Huh? Detection nowadays is very advanced. We can detect it. Which one is more dangerous for the fetus? You are able to detect both of these, but which one is more dangerous for the fetus? Early onset or late onset? Early onset, okay? Because the cell number is decreased. Increased perinatal risk in early onset, and there is lesser perinatal risk in late onset. If late onset is detected properly, if we are able to deliver at right time, giving the right medication, we can save the baby, and most of the baby are normal after just after the first year of birth. Most of the late onset IUGR babies are absolutely healthy and normal. This is the appropriate growth. This is symmetrical IUGR. All are decreased proportionately, and this is asymmetrical. Head is larger than the body. Symmetrical head circumference by abdominal circumference ratio is normal, and here it is elevated because head circumference is larger in asymmetrical. Okay, these are uniformly small. This is head is larger. Etiology is same as genetic disease, infection, chronic placental insufficiency. Neonatal course, symmetrical, complicated with poor prognosis. Symmetrical is poor prognosis because insult has occurred much earlier when fetus was not yet developed, and here insult occurred later. This having good prognosis. These are the etiology. In the maternal factors comes the first is nutrition. They can be undernutrition, overnutrition, less pregnancy weight gain, or there can be overeating or undereating in the mother, and they can be stress. Age can be a factor in maternal etiology, and substance abuse, any teratogen, any drugs intake, and preeclampsia or medical disorders in mother. Uh, in fetal, there can be fetal malformations, congenital heart disease, trisomy 13, 18, 21, and infections like TORCH, malaria, and placental and core abnormalities. Etiology is divided into three main categories: maternal factors, fetal factors, and placental factors. Under placental factors comes the placental and core abnormalities. There is, due to placental insufficiencies, there is reduced amino acid transport, reduced oxygen delivery, and reduced neuroactive substance production. There can be incorrect cord insertion. There can be single umbilical artery, placental tumor, circumvallate placenta. We can divide the maternal causes into different categories. Like first is medical disorders. Hypertensive disorder, you must have known hypertension, preeclampsia, renal disorder like CKD, heart disease, any autoimmune disease like APLA. These all come under medical disorders. Now coming on to substance abuse. If mother is having any substance abuse of smoking, tobacco, alcohol, cocaine, etc., that can lead to IUGR. Teratogens, like patient is taking any anti-epileptic, when you are taking history, you have to take all this history, any substance abuse, smoking, any chronic drug intake like anti-epileptic, anti-cancer drugs, and there can be infections like TORCH. TORCH is the main cause, okay, and malaria. TORCH full form you all know. Now coming on to fetal causes, there can be genetic structural causes, fetal malformation, congenital heart disease. One more cause is multifetal gestation. Like in twin pregnancy, there can be IUGR. There is high chance of IUGR because they are sharing same placenta, or mother is supplying to both the fetuses. So there is high chance of IUGR or fetal growth restriction in multifetal gestation, like twin pregnancy. And placental core abnormalities like abruption, infarction, chorioangioma. Now coming on to diagnosis. Why it is crucial to make the diagnosis? We have to make the accurate diagnosis at the correct gestation age, as it determines timing of delivery. You have to balance between the IUGR or the perinatal mortality or morbidity and the side effects of IUGR like stillbirth. You have to balance between the two. You have to deliver the baby at correct gestation age, but baby should be able to survive outside, or you must have some facility in the NICU for the proper development of the baby, or the for proper care of the baby. We have to balance between the two, okay. So that's why you have to check for the correct gestation age. How we will diagnose? First, we will identify the risk factors. Are there any risk factors in the mother? We will do clinical examination as we do in the OPD basis, and then imaging, ultrasound. What can be the risk factors? Like any previous history of SGA, any previous history of stillbirth in the mother, any previous history of preeclampsia in previous pregnancy, and pregnancy interval. If pregnancy interval is much shorter, like she conceived within 6 months of last pregnancy, last delivery, or is much longer, more than 10 years, both can be detrimental for the baby. Other medical illnesses in the mother like chronic hypertension, diabetes, vascular disease, renal disease, autoimmune disease like APLA, maternal, mother or father's SGA history, okay. If mother was SGA fetus or father was SGA fetus, that can be a high risk also. Current pregnancy, now coming on to current pregnancy, earlier we read the previous history. Now the in current pregnancy, if any high risk was there or not. If there was threatened miscarriage in the first trimester in the present pregnancy, any preeclampsia in the present pregnancy, unexplained APH or bleeding in the second or third trimester, or low weight gain in the mother. Now coming on to clinical examination. First we will take history. We will confirm the date by LMP and then by first trimester scan, early scan. then any history of leaking or infection is there or not, she was able to perceive the fetal movements and check for fetal heart sound and fetal presentation. In clinical examination, most important thing is symphysiofundal height or fundal height. You can use two methods like finger technique and that is inch tape. We measure from the symphysis pubis to the top of the fundus of the uterus. We measure in centimeter, or the measurement in centimeter between 24 to 38 weeks corresponds to the weeks of gestation plus minus 2 weeks. If you measure 32 centimeter and the fetus is 30 weeks pregnancy, that is normal. But if discrepancy is more than 3, then that is comes under FGR. Then we have to evaluate further, do imaging, ultrasound, fetal color Doppler. In imaging, we do biometry like BPD, head circumference. Abdominal circumference is the most sensitive, femoral length, and effective fetal weight. This is the bipyramidal diameter. This picture is not that clear, but this is the head of the fetus. We measure the bipyramidal diameter. This is the biometry in the ultrasound, which we measure during ultrasound. This is the head circumference. This hole is the head circumference. Then femoral length, this is the femoral length, and this is abdominal circumference. Abdominal circumference is taken. These are the measurement we normally take during ultrasound of the fetus. And we also measure the AFI, and serial measurement is very important, like after 2 weeks or 3 weeks interval. And if growth is there, that is known as interval growth. What I told you at 32 weeks and 34 weeks of growth is there, this is known as interval growth, okay? And umbilical artery, SD ratio, umbilical artery, color Doppler is done. This is much or a level higher than your, but you need to know the something, not the whole detail of the umbilical artery Doppler, but you need to know what basic you need to see in a IUGR, because when any examiner asks you IUGR, he will just want to listen to one word like color Doppler. You want to do color Doppler. You don't need to go in the detail, but as topic is there, you need to just listen and just grasp the basic. You don't need to learn all this or remember all these parameters, but you need to know that color Doppler needs to be done. And what color Doppler? Umbilical artery, MCA color Doppler, and ductus venosus. You don't need to go in the details, but for the lecture purpose, I have to tell you, that's why I'm telling you. Just listen, you don't need to go in the details. First, patient came to you and your AC, abdominal circumference, was less than 10 percentile. Then you will do anatomical survey, that is done in around 20 weeks, and anatomy anomaly scan is done. If there is any fetal anomaly is there, it will go, likely diagnosis will go in aneuploidy, any fetal syndrome, or any viral or fetal infection, or there is polyhydramnios. This will go through the different direction, like fetal anomaly or syndrome is there. If fetal no anomaly is there, or anatomy is normal, but AC is less, then you will do color Doppler. Okay. If fetal anomaly is abnormal, that will go to different pathway. That can be aneuploidy, any fetal syndrome can be there, different viral infection can be there. But anatomy is normal, AFI is normal or less, and but AC is less than 10th percentile. That's assumed that less than 10 percentile. Then we will go to color Doppler. Proceed to color Doppler. Umbilical artery and MCA color Doppler is done. If it is both is normal, then we will see for CPR ratio, cerebroplacental ratio. If that is also normal, then repeat examination after 2 weeks. If that is also normal, that will be constitutionally small. But if the color Doppler is abnormal, then it is placental insufficiency. Okay, that's how we will diagnose the SGA fetuses. This is the color Doppler basic. This is the waveform of color Doppler. It is a non-invasive tool for evaluating vascular resistance in vessels. When we are doing ultrasound, then students listen. Backbench बाद में करना, ये सब बाद में नहीं पढ़ाया जाएगा. फर्स्ट एंड लास्ट है ना, SG में पढ़ाया जाएगा, कहीं नहीं पढ़ाया जाएगा. फर्स्ट एंड लास्ट है, फिर डायरेक्ट एग्जाम में पूछा जाएगा. ठीक है, तब बाद में नहीं करना. This is the non-invasive tool for evaluating vascular resistance in vessels. Timing of delivery is decided according to Doppler, and Prognosis depends on the Doppler. Okay, if any fetal growth restriction is there, like fetal weight is less than 10 percentile, so next step we will go for color Doppler only. According to color Doppler indices, we will decide ki when to deliver the baby or how long we can keep the pregnancy. Like if patient is 30 weeks pregnant only, then we can't deliver the baby because there is high risk of perinatal morbidity and mortality. So if we can keep the baby for all, long or not, how long, that's depend on color Doppler. It is non-invasive. Just like you are doing USG, you will do color Doppler. This is in color Doppler waveform. This is the systolic velocity, peak systolic velocity, and this is end diastolic velocity. Okay. Blood flowing through the umbilical arteries from the fetus and enters the placenta. Okay, umbilical artery से कहाँ आता है पता ही है, anatomy पढ़ा होगा fetal circulation. Umbilical artery से blood कहाँ आता है, fetus से mother के side placenta में जाता है. The flow of blood through the arteries is dependent upon the strength of the fetal heart. How well the fetal heart is pumping, the flow depends on that only. The umbilical artery blood flow depends on the fetal heart contraction and the health of the placenta. Blood returning from the placenta goes to the umbilical vein, obviously returning from the placenta umbilical vein and goes to the fetus. Color Doppler is based on changes in sound waves related to the flow velocity. Okay, this red, blue, or depends on the flow velocity. Color changes red and of the blood traveling through these vessels. The umbilical artery, the gestation age increases, diastolic flow should increase and diastolic flow. Systolic means ki when fetal heart is contracting, and diastolic means fetal heart is relaxing. As the gestational age increases, diastolic flow should increase. But in fetal growth restricted fetuses, diastolic flow decreases. That's the sign of fetal growth restriction. This was the waveform, systolic, and this was diastolic. This is systolic, and this is diastolic. As the gestational age increases, like in umbilical artery Doppler, this diastolic flow will increase. Earlier it was here, then it will go here, then it will go here. Okay, but in fetal growth restriction, it will decrease. Now, when you are studying umbilical or a color Doppler, you need to know some terms like what is CPR, cerebroplacental ratio. When we are studying color Doppler, we need to study some indices like PI, that is pulsatility index, RI, that is resistive index, and CPR or cerebroplacental ratio. What is pulsatility index? That is peak systolic velocity minus end diastolic velocity by mean velocity. Okay. What is resistive index? Peak systolic velocity minus end diastolic velocity by peak systolic velocity. What is cerebroplacental ratio? That is middle cerebral artery PI by umbilical artery PI. For healthy baby, it should be, CPR should be, it is very important. CPR ratio should be more than 1. If it is less than 1, that is, we have to deliver the baby. This is the color Doppler. Umbilical artery is evaluated by measuring the blood flow velocity at peak systole, the maximum contraction of the heart, and the peak diastole, maximum relaxation of the heart. As the gestational age advances, increased blood flow at diastole means placenta is less resistance. Okay, at 20 weeks diastolic blood flow was less, and at 36 weeks it has increased, as you can see here. In growth retarded fetuses, and there is uterine distress, intrauterine distress, and there is more placental resistance, and the umbilical artery blood velocity waveform usually changes in progressive manner. There is first there is increased resistance or decreased end diastolic flow, then there is absent end diastolic flow, and then at last there is reversed end diastolic flow. This is the systolic, as I told you, this is the systolic velocity, and this is the end diastolic velocity. This is the uterine artery Doppler. This is the normal in the first trimester. This is the normal impedance in the second trimester, and this is the normal impedance in the third trimester of the uterine artery color Doppler. If in late trimester, if there is early notching, okay, there is early diastolic notching, or there is poor diastolic flow in the, this is uterine artery color Doppler, that is high resistance uterine artery waveform, and that is very detrimental for the fetal growth, okay, associated with impaired fetal growth and placental hypoperfusion. This is related to placental hypoperfusion, matlab uterine artery supplying to the uterus and the placenta. That is, if there is diastolic flow is less, that means there is poor flow. And it is the marker of defective remodeling of spiral arteries. What we studied in the pathophysiology, uterine artery color Doppler, defective uterine artery color Doppler is the marker of defective remodeling of spiral arteries with consequent placental hypoperfusion associated impaired fetal growth. Because uterine artery is supplying to the uterus and placenta, if there is decreased flow, there will be less growth of the fetus. Simple. If there is notching, this is the uterine artery notching in the late pregnancy, it is an indicator of increased uterine vascular resistance and impaired uterine circulation. Now coming on to the most important color Doppler in the fetus, umbilical artery Doppler. In normal pregnancy, as I told you, as the pregnancy increases, the end diastolic flow is increasing. As you can see here, it is much more at 37 weeks as compared to 22 weeks, okay. But as the fetal growth restriction, fetal hypoxia increases, there is abnormal Doppler indices, that is end diastolic velocity decreases, as you can see here. And as the hypoxia or restriction, growth restriction increases, end diastolic velocities decreases. If there is abnormal umbilical artery end diastolic velocity or low velocity, that means 30% of the fetus villus structure is damaged. And when there is absent or reversal umbilical artery end diastolic velocity, that means 60 to 70% of the villus structure is damaged, okay. Here you can see there is normal end diastolic velocity, here it is absent or zero diastolic velocity, and here it is reversal of the end diastolic velocity. That is ominous sign, we have to deliver the baby as soon as possible. Now coming on to MCA Doppler, when in full growth restricted fetuses, fetal hypoxemia occurs. When less supply is there, there will be fetal growth restriction, and there will be central redistribution of blood flow. Fetal will want to preserve the blood for the brain. Vital structures kya hai? Brain, heart, adrenal structures, mainly brain and heart. So baby will try to diverge the blood flow to the brain and heart and decrease the blood flow all other organs. What are the other organs in abdomen? Liver, intestines, the mainly liver. Normally when the fetus grows or matures around term fetus, there is glycogen deposition in the liver. But in fetal growth restriction, there will be less blood flow and there will be no glycogen deposition in the fetal liver. That's why, that is the cause of decrease in abdominal circumference, because there is decreased blood flow to the abdomen and there is decreased glycogen deposition in the liver. That's why AC mainly decreases in the late onset IUGR. The blood flow will be directed to the brain, that is MCA Doppler. So what will happen in MCA, middle cerebral artery? There will be increased blood flow to the brain, heart, and reduction to the flow to the peripheral circulation. Central distribution of blood flow occurs. Here what it will occur? Increased diastolic flow velocity in the MCA. It is obtained near the circle of Willis. When we are doing color Doppler, we will focus on the circle of Willis and we will measure the MCA Doppler. Now coming on to ductus venosus. What does ductus venosus waveform represent? That is directly reflects the pressure changes within the right atrium of the baby. The fetal heart, right atrium is pumping the blood, and ductus venosus changes will directly reflect the pressure changes in the right atrium. If there is absent, this is the normal. If there is absent, and there is reversal flow during the arterial systole in the ductus venosus, suggest high risk to the fetal death within 1 week. Fetal, we have to, this is the last scene, okay? So we have to deliver the baby immediately. This is the sequence, the sequence occurring in fetal growth restriction. There is decreased umbilical venous volume and liver size. AC or abdominal circumference lag is first biometric sign. Then there is increased umbilical artery Doppler resistance. flow distribution to MCA, middle cerebral, there is brain, and compensatory vasodilatation. There is decrease amniotic, why decrease amniotic fluid? Because of decreased blood flow to the kidneys. With the decreased blood flow to the kidneys. That's why amniotic volume also decreases. End diastolic flow velocity in the umbilical artery is absent. Then loss of fetal movement and variability. This is the sequence, how the sequence progresses. So when the patient presents with you loss of movement, all this has already occurred. When patient presents to you in emergency, ki my baby is not moving from a day, 1 day or 2 days, that means these all damage has already occurred. Okay, fetal distribution, blood flow distribution has already occurred. Okay, or end diastolic, absent end diastolic flow has already occurred. That's why you have to take it seriously. When patient is complaining that my baby is not moving, there is no fetal movement since 10 hours or 12 hours or 1 day, you have to take it seriously. Then comes the reversal of end diastolic flow in umbilical artery. Then last comes the ductus venosus A wave absent or reversal, and biophysical profile decline, that is NST. When you are doing CTG, there will be late deceleration. And last, fetal circulatory collapse. And that's why when we are doing CTG in the indoor patients who are in labor, if patient is not in labor and they are late deceleration, that is taken seriously, because this all damage has already occurred. So we have to deliver the patient as soon as possible. This is the sequence, as I told you. First the uterine artery color Doppler, then CPR ratio, then umbilical artery, then MCA. Last, when the advanced hypoxia has already occurred, then we will see the changes in ductus venosus, and CTG changes are seen in the last. Now coming on to management. What are principles of management? We identify the cause. What was the cause of growth restriction? Like there is hypertension, preeclampsia, or any drug abuse or teratogen. Treat the cause if found, and general management. Abnormal umbilical artery Doppler and effective fetal weight less than third centile was strongly and most sensitively associated with adverse perinatal outcome. How will we manage? We will do antepartum monitoring, we will give medical therapy, and we will decide when to terminate the pregnancy. Antepartum monitoring, we will ask the first one important thing is daily fetal movement count. That will be done by the patient. Non-stress test, amniotic fluid volume, biophysical profile score, fetal biometry, and fetal Doppler study. Medical therapy, first and most important thing is bed rest. Nowadays, we are giving amino acids and heparin in high-risk cases, and aspirin in if there is already a history of placental insufficiency in previous pregnancy, or there was a history of preeclampsia in previous pregnancy, or preeclampsia in present pregnancy, then we will give aspirin. Low dose aspirin should be recommended and should be given and initiated between 12 to 16 weeks. It should be initiated when the remodeling of the spiral arterioles were being carried out. Then we have to supply the aspirin or give aspirin. After that, there is use, but not that effective as if it started in the second trimester. And it is continued till 36 weeks of pregnancy. Other is corticosteroid. If fetus is between 24 to 36 weeks, then we will consider a single course of antenatal corticosteroid. What are the corticosteroid given? Dexamethasone and betamethasone. Here normally we give dexamethasone, 6 milligram, 12 hourly, 4 doses. And betamethasone, 12 milligram, 24 hourly, 2 doses. When delivery is anticipated before 34 weeks, antenatal corticosteroid should be administered before delivery. For delivery occurring before 32 weeks, there is high risk of fetal brain damage. So magnesium sulfate should be considered for fetal and neonatal neuroprotection. Okay, this can also be given in preterm deliveries. How to decide the optimal time of delivery? The gestation age of the fetus, underlying any etiology, what is the, if BP is very high, then you have to deliver it fast, you can't wait for 1 or 2 weeks. Possibility of extrauterine survival, what is your pediatrics or NICU facility in your setup, that is also very important. Like here it is okay, but if baby is less than 28 weeks, so we can't deliver over here, or in Indian setup. Okay, we can deliver the baby in higher NICU and SICU setup. Okay. Strict fetal surveillance is needed to monitor fetal well-being and detect signs of fetal compromise. When to terminate, like SGA fetus, normal Doppler is there, 37 weeks. If SGA fetus, abnormal Doppler is there, then also 38 weeks, 37 weeks if that is not detrimental, like reversal of end diastolic flow. If there is absent or reversal of end diastolic flow at 34 weeks or more, we can deliver. If more than 34 weeks, if there is changes, absent or reversal of end diastolic flow, we can deliver. If it is less than 34 weeks, we will first give steroid and then deliver. This is the flow chart, just 28 to 32 weeks. If diastolic flow is absent or reversed, we will administer steroid, do daily NST, daily Doppler, deliver when the ductus venosus is abnormal. Because here we can't deliver early because fetus is very small. If we will deliver at 28 weeks, we will baby might die outside. Okay, that's why we have to balance between the two. Prematurity risk and the IUGR risk. We have to balance the both. If at 32, 34 weeks, if there is absent reverse flow, we will admit, give steroid, and we can deliver after 32 weeks. 34 to 37 weeks, we have to deliver. And if at 28 to 32 weeks, if diastolic flow is present but decrease, we will do twice weekly biophysical profile and Doppler. Mode of delivery, how we will deliver, normal or cesarean. If there is absent or reversal of end diastolic flow, we will prefer to deliver by cesarean section. But if abnormal umbilical Doppler is there, but end diastolic flow is present, then we can consider normal delivery, but we have, there is increased risk of emergency C-section and perinatal morbidity and mortality. You have to explain the patient between the two. These are the complications of the IUGR, like antepartum, what can be the complication? There can be stillbirth if patient presents late, like patient presents after 2 days of loss of fetal movement. There can be stillbirth. There can be iatrogenic prematurity if we deliver early, like we deliver at 30 weeks. There can be iatrogenic, we are delivering earlier, iatrogenic prematurity. There can be abruption, and there can be perinatal stroke. Intrapartum, abnormal fetal status or fetal heart rate tracing can be there. Asphyxia can be there if normal delivery is allowed. Emergency C-section rate increases. Need for the active neonatal resuscitation is there, and in neonatal, there can be risk of fetal hypoglycemia, hypocalcemia, polycythemia due to hypoxia, and hypothermia, coagulopathy. Sepsis rate is very much increased in premature. You must have read in pediatrics, sepsis rate is very much. Most of the fetus die due to sepsis only. All the other things are managed, but sepsis, most common causes sepsis of death in premature fetuses. Hepatocellular dysfunction, RDS, necrotizing enterocolitis, IVH, intraventricular hemorrhage, especially in premature IUGR. And there is hepatic encephalopathy. There can be pulmonary hypertension, persistent pulmonary hypertension. Asphyxia risk is increased, and pulmonary hemorrhage can be there. Meconium aspiration can be there. What are the long-term outcomes? There's increased risk of if baby survives. Suppose the baby survives, baby is healthy, baby discharged from the NICU. What are the long-term outcomes? The fetus can have increased risk of cardiovascular disease, hypertension, glucose intolerance, diabetes, dyslipidemia, obesity in the adulthood, and increased cognitive deficiency or disorder. This is the neonatal assessment you must have read in pediatrics. I don't need to go into details. How you will identify any IUGR baby? There will be thin, loose, peeling skin, scaphoid abdomen, disproportionately large head. Okay, and Porter's index is less than 10 certainly. Prognosis. Mortality increases with prematurity. The more the premature the fetus, risk of mortality or morbidity is more. Neurodevelopmental morbidities are seen 5 to 10 times more often in IUGR infants.